Good morning. My name is David Roush. I am the president of KSM Transport Advisors. I'd like to thank FreightWaves for hosting us at their Carrier Summit and thank my guest, Sherri Brumbaugh, for joining us. We'll talk more about Sherri here in a minute. Our firm, KSM Transport Advisors, focuses solely on truckload carrier profitability. That's all we do. We look at various areas of that. Today, we're going to talk about how to understand your freight network so that you can improve profitable operations. My background is I've been a trucker since the early 80s. I'm a third generation trucker. I've been actively involved in trucking since the early 80s. I've been a consultant for 10 years, helping carriers understand how to be more profitable, again, primarily with their freight network. I'm fortunate today to have as a guest Sherri Garner Brumbaugh. She's the owner and CEO of Garner Trucking in Findlay, Ohio. Sherri's a second generation trucker. She is the incoming ATA chairman. She's actively involved in many trucking organizations. The three that I think are closest to her heart are Truckers Against Trafficking, Women in Trucking, and the Ohio Trucking Association. So Sherri, why don't you say hi to everybody and give them a little bit of more color, and then we'll get on with the interview.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and great being here today. Yeah, I'm a educator by trade, but a trucker by heritage. My parents started Vern Garner Trucking in 1960. We're celebrating 60 years in the trucking industry this year. It's been quite the year, 2020. But we are a truckload, full truckload carrier dry van based in Northwest Ohio. About 90 trucks, 350 trailers serving the Midwest, retail distribution warehouse. That's our gig. That's what we do.
Thanks, Sherri. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is your freight network strategy or a freight network strategy and why it's important to have one. We know here at KSM Transport Advisors, because we track rates, and we know that from the first quarter of 2018 through the second quarter of 2020, which includes April and May, some pretty rough months in this COVID environment, we know our carriers beat the market. So our carriers went up 8.3% during that time period. The Stevens Truckload Index, which is the publicly traded carriers, went up 2.8% during that time period. Remember, that includes 2018, the rate party, and then the clawback in 2019. The TMW IDSC Market Rate Index went up 3.3%. And Sherri, I'm not going to tell them the exact number, but you knocked it out of the park during that time. So how did you do that?
First of all, you need to have good math, and that's what David and his group has provided for us. And good data allows you to make good decisions. Prior to engaging with David and his team, you make gut decisions, and you have some information, and it looks like you're performing well. But could we perform better? Are we making good decisions within our freight network? And so the data provided us through, the information was to, find good yield. And that's the number one number we drive for every week, every load, every lane. We want a good yield in every lane, and good math provides that for us.
Great. So let's talk about the good math. When you use a system like you're using our system, you have transparency. So you have a number that's associated with every load, every customer, every lane, every area. And so you have a lot of transparency, and transparency really goes both ways, right? I mean, it's great to have visibility of the numbers, but you have to do something with that. So can you talk to some of the challenges, if you had any, with your team, with implementing with getting them to buy in, and talk about how you actually use those numbers to make decisions.
Right. It wasn't hard to get good buy-in when you're looking at your network, you're looking at your numbers, your freight, your customers, and what lanes you're in, and then the resources. And it's all about data. It's all about having all that good information so you can make good decisions. And the more information you have, the better math you have, the better decisions you can make. And so, we were able to look at our network and see those outliers, what was not a good yield, and then prioritize those lanes. I mean, you can't tackle you can't shake up your whole freight network. You have contractual agreements. Yeah, it's hard to steer the ship. Make a quick left, but you need to guide it, and so that good math helps you to do and prioritize it, and that's what the data did for us. Prioritize what to go after first.
So, Sherri, one of the things that we do, we provide is a pricing intelligence tool that allows you to, I call it, complete the circle of life. If you're using yield to evaluate the profitability of your network and help you craft this network strategy, um, do you guys use the pricing tool, and how do you use that?
Every day. We know what our yield needs to be profitable. And so for every lane, my sales team will put those lanes through that pricing tool, and it's a guide. And then you have to, your relationships with your customers. You look at your lanes. Maybe you're not getting a yield to an area that has a really, really good yield. So maybe it's identifying a lane that, okay, this is gonna, right now it's a bridge, if you will, to get us where we need to be. And also it shows you market of, maybe there's money we're leaving on the table. And if if we can go high, you go high. And if you have to be in the middle, you can be in the middle, and low to be a temporary situation. But uh, that's what that information provides, that pricing tool, and then you can throw all, my size carrier, we all are. We get inundated with bids, and we can throw that bid out there, and it may pull out lanes that to the eye you don't find, but the computer finds for you. The data search finds for you.
Right. So again, you're letting the math drive the decisions.
Absolutely.
You know, and we say that, for a carrier, most carriers use 20% science and 80% art, and we're trying to push it to 80% science and 20% art, where you can actually spend time really thinking about what you're doing. And one thing you alluded to there, Sherri, you talked about was that, you know you have your yield based price that shows you what you need on a lane in order to make your money to be profitable. But you also have other prices, the most important being the market price. What's the current market for that? And yeah, which the market sets the price, right? I mean, so it's hard to price above the market. Yeah. So one thing you talked about there was going to bad areas. So I'm going to get a little bit personal here. So when we first started working with you a couple years ago, almost 3 years ago, uh, your largest customer was kind of on an island outside your geographic footprint. And we talked about that customer. If they showed up to be not profitable, can you talk about some of the pain in dealing with that? Not just the pain of
Right.
hearing us, harp on it every
Right.
week or every period, right? But just
Oh yeah.
the pain in
That
dealing with that, and where you guys are with them now.
Yeah. In David's language, those outliers show up as toxic. And, it was the one particular customer was a 15-year plus customer. And we had, a long relationship with this customer. And I called it my come to Jesus call with David. And he's like, Sherri, you're sitting down. We need to talk. And it was obvious. It was an outlier in our freight network. We were losing money doing it, and so, but it was a lot of freight. And so we put a strategy together to, what were the worst performing lanes, going back to that customer, what was their level of tolerance of rate increase. Now we were talking, 18 to 18 when there was, a tolerance for a conversation for rate increase, and where they were. And if they couldn't budge, then we had to, then the ball was in our court to make a decision.
Right. Yeah. And you guys did a really great job on that and are in a good place. So, two more things. This will kind of be a short one, I think. But one of the things that's during COVID, during the dark days of COVID, I know we're coming out of it. I just read a Stevens deal this morning that cast a little bit of pessimism on whether we're really, what the future really is. But truckers are always optimistic. Back during the dark days, people talked about cheap freight, don't haul cheap freight. We believe you have to haul some backhaul freight. You can't load cheap to cheap, backhaul to backhaul, but it's kind of the glue that holds your network together. Can you just quickly address that? Then I've got one final question here before we run out of time.
Sure. Our obvious yield dropped during this time frame. It was, that heartbeat drop, right? That's what it looked like on a graph. And so we're clawing our way back from that, as I'm sure all my peers are. But we learn from it, but we remain profitable. Less, we because I think we've made those good decisions prior to.
And so you had a strategy during this COVID time. You still kept the same strategy. You just adjusted your tactics to the reality of the marketplace, correct?
Correct. And the tools provided those areas where there's freight available to us within our network.
So here we are emerging from COVID. The future's probably a little bit murky, but it appears to be positive. Again, truckers are always positive, which is one great thing about working with y'all. What's your guys' post-COVID path, and not just related to the freight network, but what do you think and needs to happen, and what do you see happening? You have a great lens, being the incoming chairman of the ATA, so you're really up on what's going on in the industry. So, in the last minute and 30 seconds we have here, what do you think?
Well, if there's anything we learn, where are efficiencies, where are inefficiencies in our industry, and I will take this moment to say, as far as advocacy as part of the industry, we need to advocate for that paperless bill of lading, especially when it comes to our hazmat freight. We need to be able to do that. Just think of our drivers. Have you ever walked 25 dock doors to a shipping office in the dead of winter and when it's raining? Well, that's just senseless. We can do this. We can go paperless. We can do an electronic format. If we can do it during COVID, during a pandemic, we can certainly do electronic bill of lading post-COVID. So let's learn from this. Let's keep our drivers safe, keep them in the safety of their cab, and transfer our data in a smart way.
Great. Well, Sherri, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you here today. Obviously, we know each other well, but you have a great insight into both freight network engineering and the market as a whole. I'd like to thank FreightWaves for this opportunity to participate in the Carrier Summit. And with that, Sherri, unless you have anything to add, we'll just say goodbye.
Right.
And
great. Thank you. Know your numbers. Know your numbers. Thanks.
Thank you.